Yeah. My
Okay.
hair looks alright.
Yo, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 24 of Unfiltered. I'm your host, ChanManV, and lots of topics today to talk about. I had to delay the show because of certain things that came up earlier this week, but had to have a show this week given the guests we have and the topics that I wanted to discuss. So we're going to kick things off with League of Legends Worlds. It happened last weekend. Biggest event.
I can't hear you now, by the way.
Oh, they can't hear me? They can
Oh,
hear
you
me.
came back there. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, they can hear me. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, so League of Legends Worlds, we'll kick things off by talking about that. Happened last weekend. Supposedly the biggest event in our industry.
Esports history.
Esports history, exactly. We'll follow it up with WCS EU concluded for 2013. So just kind of talk about how it went. IEM's going on right now in New York City, so be cool to talk a little bit about that. Lots of games been going on the last 2 days, and then Scoots wanted to talk a little bit about Dreamhack Winter, especially with you on Thorin and being CS:GO, and Valve's doing some great things with that tournament, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll finish things off with some StarCraft 2 talk, and then Q&A with you guys. And if you want to ask your questions, go ahead and post it in the Reddit thread. Let me link it to you real quick here, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Of course, there's usually like 100 questions, so we can't get to them all, but we'll try to get the ones that are the most interesting. Let's put it that way. But okay, let's kick things off by let's talk about this. So I didn't have this originally planned, but it's too hard not to move up to the top. But Steven, so what the hell's up with the Dollar Shave Club, man? Like, what the hell is this?
I gotta pick them sponsors up, man.
What is
dirty
this?
esports cash.
Dude, I read this blog. I thought this was a troll blog, but then
What
then
the
I
fuck? When
then
am I
I
never serious? Come on.
then I
dude.
switched over to your stream and I see your ass like clean shaven, man. It's like, what the hell?
I was actually traumatized when I came out of the bathroom. I kept thinking I have to go put a suit on and go back to work or something, man. I was having nightmares the entire night.
So what's the deal here, man? They're sponsoring you now, or what's up? Did you have to shave
Yeah,
your
it
balls too, or what?
I don't know. Have you seen him shaving on fucking images before?
No comment there. So what's the deal?
Yeah, what? We got, I mean, I've seen their shit in the past. So normally, this is my process, not knowing shit about having connections or any of that bullshit, right? So I find shit that I really like, and then I send them emails if I think it's cool, and I say, hey, like, this is all of my shit, all of my avenues for exposure. I think that your product is cool, and I think people would like it, blah, blah, blah. And in most cases, like contacting Sennheiser, they say, I have no idea who you are, go fuck yourself, in nicer terms. And in some cases, like the Dollar Shave Club, they're like, hey, this is really cool, we'll work with you, send us how you plan to advertise your shit, and then we'll launch a campaign or whatever. And that's what I did, and it worked here, so.
All right. Cool. And in the blog, you mentioned a tier 3 subscrition too. Why'd you decide to do that?
Shit up. Because I fucking love the money, dude.
Okay.
Fuck.
Man, now all I get in your chat now is like, Channel Man, why aren't you tier 3? Before I used to always get, why aren't you tier 2? But now, oh man, that's another more shit to get in it. But all right, well, anyways, I thought I'd bring that up because I was just really shocked to see you're clean shaven, man. It's kind of cool. But okay, let's move on to League of Legends World Finals. Actually, I didn't even get a chance to introduce our guest today. Man, I'm just like a terrible host. But so let me introduce my co-host, obviously, is Destiny. But our guest today, guys, is SirScoots over here to our left. It's his first time on Unfiltered. He's been on a lot of my shows, but always fun to have Scoots on the show. What's up, buddy?
Not much. Thanks for having me. Congrats on that, by the way, Steven.
Thanks.
It's good to see that you don't have to be on a team. You don't need to be a pro level. Like, you just need to have a community behind you, and you can support yourself in that sense, other than just subs,
Did you just call me a teamless amateur? What the fuck?
No, but it's not like you're a pro, like, top player that's traveling the world on someone else's dime, is what I meant,
Yeah.
So.
And then our other guest today is somebody that you might know from his very popular interview video series, Grilled. He's from a very rare brotherhood called Journalists in Esports. He's none other than Thorin. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I won't pass any comics. I legitimately don't care if someone pays Destiny to shave his face. So can we skip right into the esports here?
So that's why I had to get it in before we do introductions, because he would have ruined my topic right there, man.
With fucking Richard Lewis. Now we got this guy. What the fuck?
Bring
Jay,
British
by the way,
people on
chat, man,
board.
chat is
That's what
saying you
happens.
do have some audio issues with echo and
Oh,
static.
do I? Oh shit! Oh, really? Let me hold on. It could be my headset. All right, that should be better. My headset kind of has been acting up with my mic lately. Is that better, guys?
Should get a sponsorship from some sort of headset company.
Yeah, fuck you.
Then it'd be crystal
Oh.
clear.
Fuck you.
You know.
I have a wonderful headsets. Man. These Razer headsets are just.
Oh, Razer
baby.
under the bus
Baby.
immediately.
Baby, Razer. It's this mic. It's this mic I'm
okay.
using. That's the terrible mic.
The mic's made by like Riot or something though, yeah.
Whoa.
Well, I'm gonna have to use. I think I'm gonna have to use this headset for now. Is that better, guys?
Yeah.
Let's see,
You
make
look like
sure.
you're doing tech service now, like, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. Hi. Who?
ChanManV, please get your Indian accent out. Let's
Oh
go.
man, I'm not gonna do that. Not gonna do that, man. Definitely not gonna do that. Oh, I'm a little too loud now. Jeez. Okay. All right. Anyways, we'll figure it out. I think it's using my headset mic now, but oh well. We'll just work with it and see how it goes. Okay, let's talk about the League of Legends World Finals, guys. Happened last weekend at the Staples Center. Again, it was the lead up to it was going to be the biggest esports event ever. Just given how large the League of Legends has been, and it's really been pushing esports. So, Thorin, you were actually at the event, right?
Sure.
So yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. From somebody that actually went to the event, was the place packed? I mean, from what I could tell from at home, it looked like every seat was filled in the place.
The thing is, it supposedly they sold the tickets out, I think. Like, it was one of those things where they said they sold them out really fast. So in theory, I was expecting, because it's League of Legends from all the events I've been to, like even just like the regionals for Europe, and even like MLGs where all they had there was like the LCS, the league, they'd have like play days there, like one play day at an MLG in March this year. I expected, this place is going to be completely packed out, because all of those were always really, really stacked. Like, for example, MLG, just for their LCS play day, would have more people watching than over in the StarCraft 2, the main tournament where like Flash would be playing live or something. So I thought this place is going to be absolutely packed. I thought the one thing you can be sure of is people are going to be super sphere, whether or not you like the game or not, okay? But actually, that's actually the area I think it failed the most in, because when I sat I was sat just in the crowd, okay, but I was like up on a level up here in the Staples Center, so like not on the floor seats, I guess you'd say. And if I just looked around, first of all, in my section there was a load of seats empty, and then overall, I would probably say like 1/6 of the seats had no one in them. So that's not too much, but again, you'd expecting it to be like, this is the biggest event in League of Legends, no, it's going to be like standing room only, people going crazy. Then in the final itself, there actually wasn't that loud a crowd. Like, I saw people commenting on Reddit and saying stuff like, it's just because the crowd weren't mic'd up. It's like, well, I was in the crowd, like, so like my experience isn't invalidated, mate. Like, there wasn't that much noise. Like, I'll give you an example. When they had this, one of the good things about the way they did their show was they had this like analyst desk, and they had this sort of like build up like a real sports show, okay? So since they had the personalities on the analyst desk, when they did a little skit before the final actually started, that probably got like 2 times as much crowd noise as the actual games themselves, no matter what was going on in the games themselves. So, I mean, that sets the tone right there. So where do you want to go with this?
I mean, actually, one thing that I think is really important in this event, probably highlighted better than any event in all of fucking esports history. I remember when Red Eye was on the show a few days ago, he says that one thing he always prays for as an event organizer are I hate to overuse the term good storylines or whatever, but you always hope that like really good, strong, positive, like easily identifiable characters will emerge in tournaments and kind of bout up against other ones, because those are the people that get you the big hits, you know? People like Scarlet or whoever the Korean superstar is or whatever. And this event was pretty much as bad as it could be in regards to having it be a 3-0 stomp in terms of generating interest for the audience. You know, I don't know. I kind of wonder how much that affected the audience excitement to see how easily one team got stomped and shut out in the fucking World Finals, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, and but the thing about this finals is that we knew the two teams, right? They kind of did it from the standpoint of not having, you know, multiple matches at the event, right? This was the finals. We knew the two teams that were going to be there, and there was like build up to it, right? And
Sure.
because of that, the production around that should have been top level. And then how the matches go, you never know, right? And that, you're at the mercy of just how those went. And they went
I mean,
terribly.
In terms of production and whatnot, I think everything was more or less fine. Like nothing stood out like at a Blizzard event. So I don't.
I mean, I can think of some production stuff that was kind of mistaken. Like, for example, because they were so hooked on the analyst desk, because that was the thing getting the big hits, okay? No matter what happens in any of the games, people want to see, like, double lift. They want to see the personalities and what they have to say, which is a good thing, okay? But the problem is, they were really off with how to do it. Like, at the beginning of the tournament, they'd originally planned to only do the analyst desk every 2 or 3 games. And then people initially were like, what the fuck? Like, we don't get anyone talking, like, right after the first game. So then they started going to it after every game immediately afterwards, okay? But the problem is, on the final, that meant, literally, the team won, the SKT won the final. So then they cut to the analyst desk and have them break the game down. Then they go back for, like, the trophy presentation. Like, can you imagine in any other sport? Like, yeah, you have the trophy presentation separately, but you see the celebration aspect first, So that was, like, that made that really muted immediately, because, like, it's kind of like you went to the TV show and then you went back to it. And then also, I have no idea why they did this, but for some reason they decided to have the Riot founders be the one to do, like, the host work of handing out the trophy. Like, why have a professional host and then have some guys come out like, guys, thank you for your, like, reading off a card or something, like 10 years of helping, and I like, imagine, when you see, like, in a movie or something where they have someone who's like the CEO and he gives, like, a really awkward speech or something. He's trying to be, like, heartfelt. If you pull that off, it's going to be epic, okay? Because it's going to be like, wow, he's a man of the people. He knows it. If you don't pull it off, you look like a retard. Like, you're just going to look like, well, this is our biggest event in history, and then we've already had a final that wasn't that good. We haven't had this celebration, and now we're going to actually mess up the trophy celebration where people are lifting up the trophy and they're supposed to be really happy and excited. Like, I think they kind of dropped the ball on that bit. It's not as big a deal, but it wasn't a good way to cap the event, I thought.
Yeah, hold on a second. We're having some mic issues here. Let me see if I can do something about this really quick, because instead of people just constantly complaining about it.
God damn it, ChanManV.
I know, exactly, right? Hold on, I might actually have to... Is there any echo, guys? As long as there's no echo, I think I'll just use this. If it's...
I mean, there's no echo to us. But...
Okay, it's fine. Whatever. Yeah, that's the weird thing. It's like when we were doing sound check, it didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, I agree that the end, the celebration was crazy. But even the lead up to it, right? There were a lot of really cool, fancy things that they were doing with the production, the orchestra. Having Crystal Method and Borland like obviously playing and doing that. That was really, really impressive. But I even thought just the way that they switched from the analyst desk, the casters and that sort of thing, to the crowd stuff was very fragmented. I don't know, Scoots, what do you think about that, man? You're the kind of production guy here.
I have to agree with what you've all said so far. Thorin nailed a couple things I was definitely going to bring up. I think first and foremost with any sport, e-sport, whatever, it's the luck of the final, right? You never know. We've had, remember some GSLs that were blowouts, sucked, right? And then you can have some good ones. I think the fact that they sold tickets long before anyone knew who was going to come maybe affected not only attendance, maybe some of those empty seats, Thorin, were bought by North American fans, and when a North American team didn't have a shitload of chance, they went, I'm not gonna buy an airline ticket, and they couldn't resell their ticket. I think the only storyline was, does Tabe's crew have a shit chance in hell of beating SK? And that was a long shot by anyone's stretch. His own team even didn't think it was going to happen. So that would have been great, right? That would have been our storyline if they would have won. But it obviously played out like everybody thought it would. They got kind of stomped. Riot can't really do much about that when it gets down to 2 teams. I totally agree with Thorin that the 2 guys that came on in the end, they were reading off a teleprompter. No ifs, ands, or buts. They were reading off a teleprompter. They had like 5 sentences to say. Come on. It's a little different when the Joe Millers and the casters and the analysts are doing some scripted stuff with teleprompters. Those guys had one duty. Come on that stage at the very end, say thank you to everybody, say exciting time, thanks for helping us fill Staples, let's give a trophy away. Come on, did you really need to script that? And it showed. Like, yeah, and they were nervous, obviously, they don't do it for a living, but still, like, that just came off as really like, really? And again, just like Thorin said, they went back to the analyst desk far too long as they were prepping the award ceremony, right? And we all know that award ceremonies in esports are having like are like awkward central, right? It just happens. You know, we didn't have a crazy champagne mishap this time, but like with the trophy and everything, it was just weird. And I asked a question on Twitter, and you were there, Thorin, and you're a big sports guy. Let me ask you a hypothetical question, and it doesn't even relate to just the finals because it's every esport event. If you go to a sporting event, you don't hear what you hear at home. You hear Michael Jordan, number 23, when he makes when he makes a basket, right? You don't hear the constant in your ear. The venue and the vibe is what you get in game, and you're there watching it, right? And I know that we're a computer game, we're not a basketball game, but does it detract after a while if you hear that? Like, what do you think, Thorin? Should you hear what you hear at home? Like, you go to a Super Bowl, you don't hear the play-by-play, you don't hear any of that. And I wonder if that is starting to detract from because again, if I can sit at home and all I don't get is just that vibe, but I get instant replay, I get graphics, I get all these other things I don't get in the venue, should I just stay at home? You know, so that's a big question. That's a riot question. What do you think of that? Since you were there, Thorin, would it be better if like you didn't get spoon-fed the info in venue?
I mean, that's actually one of the things I was hoping it was going to be. Like I said, I thought for sure, well, one thing you're going to have is all these League of Legends fans who claim to like be the number one fan of esports and they're so into it. Oh, they're going to go crazy. So I thought at least we'd definitely, I didn't know how the games would be, but I knew like the atmosphere is going to be crazy, especially as I'd watched like the International 3 final. And so I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be like that. Like people are going to go completely nuts because it's the game they love, you know? And actually, I mean, to answer your question, like that's one of the things that was most disappointing for me personally, because I've watched like tons and tons of Lakers games over the last like decade or so, and I've watched quite a lot of Kings games. And so I thought, oh, for sure, this stadium also is going to be awesome because like you see how like in those sports, the amount of people they can get in there and like the level of atmosphere you can get when something crazy happens is really, really good. So I've watched all these games and I'm like, oh, it's going to be in the same venue. Like, oh, this is going to be good, man. And then I go there and like, they gave me it sometimes. Like there were a couple of moments where people got a bit excited, like actually the bit before, and there was a bit in game 2 where they got excited. But in general, it was quite muted, or it was people sort of doing like yeah, but they weren't like, it wasn't like they were like overwhelmed by it. They just thought like, oh, this is an appropriate moment, like I'm supposed to cheer, like yeah. Gotcha. But actually, something what you talked about before was, in terms of the actual games, that was actually one of the biggest problems of the tournament because. Like I've noticed in general, it's actually a really bad problem that so many finals are bad when you have these sorts of structures. Because the famous joke in GSL that the final was always the worst. Well, if you think about it, the way it's set up, the 2 semifinals usually have the same structure as the final, like they did in GSL as far as I remember.
Right.
I think that's right, yeah. And so we had the same problem as you did in GSL in this tournament, which is you get either one really slamming semifinal or 2 really good semifinals. So then you go into the final and then one just stomps the other. Now that usually suggests to me that that's a basic problem with a single elimination, which is that because you have to hope that the 2 best teams end up on either side of the bracket, there's actually a much higher chance that the 2 teams meet in the semifinals because you've got 2 matches for them to meet in there. So you actually sort of got, you're still going to get your final, but it will have been in the semi-final. So when you want all the pomp and you want everything to be directed at it, that's where I think like single elimination can let you down, unless you have amazing seeding. And in esports, we have no seeding. So that's like a big error there. Because I'll give you an example, okay? The big problem with this final went like this. Just in terms of styles, it was a style mismatch. Because the team Royal Club, their strength, okay, was like late game play because their AD carries their best player. I don't know how much you guys know about League of Legends. I'll give you the basics, okay? Yep. So their style was like a late game style where they try to like get this one guy really, really strong and then he's going to carry the whole game. The problem was they were playing the best game in the best team in the whole world at like managing the pace of a game and then playing late game and closing it out themselves. So immediately their strength was going to have to be like way, way better than almost every other strength of the other team. And so that sounds like, oh, well, maybe every final's like that. No, because actually there was a team that Royal Club themselves beat earlier, the other Chinese team called OMG. OMG's style was very early, aggressive diving play. Now, even if they'd have got to the final, because they were the other team I think would have made it okay. If they'd have got to the final and they'd played SK Telecom, even if they'd lost 3-0 somehow, it would have been very exciting because they would have gone for it, in the beginning. They would have attacked, they would have been really aggressive. And so whether or not, actually, those scenarios get crowd reaction, whether or not they succeed or not, because people get really excited by the ganks and, what's going to happen here and something unexpected. Same also, believe it or not, in the other semi-final. The other team they played in the other semi-final, another Korean team, that series went 3-2 because that was two Koreans, and then the matchup of like them knowing each other and knowing what I know that like implicit knowledge and stuff, that makes for really interesting games as well. And so amazingly, they managed to get a final where it was almost like the worst match of two of the best teams you could get for the final.
Yeah,
so I think that was kind of an error.
So I mean, we can talk all day about just how matching up the right teams and given how those games go is how much excitement we'd get as a crowd. But forget that, okay? Because other sports, when you have the Super Bowl, we've had plenty of terrible, shitty
Super Bowl,
games.
I hate American football.
Okay, whatever. We've had some shitty games in the NBA finals.
Yes, that's because it's best of one.
No, it doesn't matter. We've had some terrible final games in whatever sport you want to look at.
Yeah. Well, lots of sports have bad finals. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, of course. So that's going to happen. So my whole thing is that the production for this event, for the people that actually attended the event, should have been better. Like, Thorin, did you have a good time just being there? Forget the games. Just like the experience of being in the Staples Center, like you are when you go to a Laker game.
Listen, it wasn't terrible. I'm just saying it should have been a lot better. Like, I'd probably rate it like a 6 out of 10. I mean, the game's not being good obviously detracted a bit. But so let's say the games have been amazing. Like, let's say it had been like, was it best of 5? Yeah, let's say it had been 3-2 games, and it had actually been like win 1, they win 1, we win 1, they win 1, then an amazing 5th game.
Yeah.
With everything else identical, I still don't think it would have been close to a 10 out of 10. It would probably have been like an 8 out of 10 because, again, the crowd reaction. Like, part of the problem is it's easy to look backwards now and go, oh, well, it was 3-0. That's why the crowd didn't care. No, actually, this is something Scoots mentioned. The crowd weren't that into it already from the first game. The first game wasn't decided. And then in game 2 was actually an exciting game. Basically, game 2 was a game, it ended up being deflating because Royal should have won. And then they lost, and since it was like, if they're even losing the game they should have won, then they're going to get something. Yeah, that brings the mood down. But during the game, that should have been very exciting because there was all these turnarounds in team fights to a degree you don't even usually see at the pro level. Like, usually, you can kind of tell, like, this team's going to win this team fight. And then maybe the other one can turn it around like once. But this happened like 2 or 3 times within the same sequence. That should have been incredibly exciting. The real reason, if you want to get into it, why I think it wasn't that big a crowd reaction is because there was no white people playing in the final. If there'd been an NA team, there would have been an insane reaction. You should have seen the reaction of some of TSM's group stage games where they were going to get stomped by like SK Telecom. People were going crazy cheering for them. Then you have like, even if the reason why I say white people is because it doesn't have to be an NA team. People also would have really cheered if Fnatic had made it. Anyone who they know about the characters.
That's true.
Really, I'll put it down like this. In StarCraft 2, okay, we actually accept that, okay, Koreans are the best, and you should appreciate if some amazing Korean wins like 10 events or something. Even so, we know there's a sentiment in the StarCraft 2 community like, I'm sick of Koreans, I want to see people I know like Idra or someone someone with a personality, and I want to see them win and this and that and the other. Those people, we sort of leave them like the racist old grandfather. Like, we let them have their stupid opinion, and then we're just like, yeah, whatever, just ignore them. They're like part of we have to put up with them, but the rest of us appreciate the Koreans and stuff. In League of Legends, it's the same thing, but amplified even worse. Because the problem there is, because they have region locked, people don't give a fuck about Korea. And Korea is the best games. If you really did care about League of Legends, the game, you'd be loving Korea. It had an amazing final in OGN, okay? But people don't care about that. They want to know, like, I like Doublelift's personality, or I like Expeke. So they just watch their own regions. And so the problem is they're being told, okay, SK Telecom's the dominators who are going to win everything and they're going to beat, and they're like, I don't like that. Like, I want someone to beat them and stuff. It's like the whole storyline aspect was really confused because of that underlying like dirty secret that people don't really like League of Legends. They like the entertainment side of like following teams they like and stuff.
Well, let me ask you.
I kind of.
Oh, go ahead.
Real fast, I kind of disagree with that. I think that it's easy to say in StarCraft 2 now, it's easy to say that we appreciate the Koreans, blah, 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 blah. But I think that's because all the people that were really big onto the, like, I'm only going to cheer for NA or U people have already left. So I think that's why the only people left...
Oh, by the way, I don't think it's huge in StarCraft 2. I'm just saying it's better in StarCraft 2. People at least will be like, I'm a fan of Marine King or something,
Oh, no, yeah, but it used to be in StarCraft 2, like in 2011 and early 2012, it was exactly like League.
No, it was...
Where if you have, the people on Liquid or people on EG are always the people you're going to cheer for. Even if you knew they'd had a snowball chance in hell of winning anything, you would always be cheering for Idra or Rhett or even Sheth or any other white person I think that was huge in StarCraft 2, but for the most part, those people have kind of now because it's only Koreans that have been winning everything for like the past year and a half.
Well, I also think there's the knock-on effect where when you then... Okay, so you're watching the tournament like we're talking about in 2011, and you want to see Rhett get to the final, but he doesn't, okay. Instead, like, Alicia or someone makes the final. Then when you watch that final, after you've watched Alicia enough times, maybe you're a fan of his now. Maybe you're a fan of MVP or someone. Actually, you get accustomed to him. What's funny is it's the same exact process. People just don't understand it. Like, part of the reason why I've never had a problem with Koreans winning and why I love watching them if they're the best is because I used to watch Brood War. And the reason why is the whole scene was Korean. So what you do is you just start to learn the scene like you would if you were watching your NA scene, okay? You start to learn, oh, actually, this is the quiet guy, and this is the guy who's got like a lot to prove, and he's kind of a little bit cocky. And yeah, it's a little more muted, so maybe you have to like focus in. Maybe it's like watching something like Pride and Prejudice or something, you know? They're not like over the top like a soap opera, but it's like it's there boiling under the surface, you know? And so it's a little bit more subtle, but the more you get accustomed to it, the more you're going to pick up on those things. And people eventually did see, like, oh, okay, I like the personality of a Marine King, or I like the way MC does his trash talk and stuff. And, like, people gradually will get accustomed to that. But the problem is, when you've got a game like League of Legends, like I'm describing, it's almost set up so that you only watch OGN if you're, like, a hipster, or if you're, like, a guy who's just into really weird stuff, or you're so intense and hardcore. Like, if you're the natural, casual viewer, you'll never find your way to OGN. You'll find your way to the 2 LCS leagues run by Riot and promoted by Riot. And as a result, unfortunately, every year in the finals, you're probably not going to know that much about the teams who are in the finals, which isn't ideal for your sporting event. Because you gave the analogy before, okay, of real sports. Imagine the Super Bowl happening, and both teams haven't nobody's really watched either of the teams in the final. So there hasn't been any nationally televised games. They've been playing off in, like, Canada somewhere, and then they just have the final. Like, oh, is everyone going to watch the Super Bowl? Like, well, no, I'm like a Cowboys fan. Like, oh, okay.
Scoots, you want to say something here?
Yeah, it's more back to the vibe in the building and the empty seats, or maybe the number of people there. Again, I wonder, and I don't know how many people you talked to, Thorin, when you were there, just regular fans, if you did any interviews. But like, I know when it was announced, and again, I've watched some League, but it's not. I don't play it. I've played it a few times, but it's not my game. I considered going simply because this, for me, was this earth-shattering, biggest thing ever, right? So how many people, whether they're from LA or, how many people went just to say they were there, and they weren't necessarily, like, I have friends that went because it was fucking Staples Center and esports, right? Not necessarily they're League of Legends fans, right? But they wanted to be there. I've been there, done that, I was there, right? And have that badge of honor. Fuck, I almost went. So I wonder if that was why some people weren't loud and as crazy, because they're not necessarily hardcore League fans. They just want to be part of the experience. And so therefore they were like, okay, I should cheer now. Fuck yeah, good job. You know what I mean? And again, you go to a Laker game, you're either a Lakers fan or you're a fan of the team they're playing, right? And you don't go, oh, I'm just going to go to some basketball game. Like, you're going to be a fan of something. This maybe was a little different for thousands of people, just to go, right?
Sure.
Actually, let me just jump in on that quickly.
It's not enough, though. It's not enough to just, Riot saying, oh, we're going to have it in the Staples Centers, we're going to pack the Staples Centers, and you should come because it's going to be the biggest esports event. See, that's not enough. If they're going to do it, they need to do it right.
Actually, there's a cheat, though, that Koreans do that people haven't picked up on the West here, though, which is in OGN and in Brood War and in StarCraft 2, when they have the big finals. I don't know about StarCraft 2 because I think the crowds are smaller, but I know in Brood War and OGN for League of Legends, they would actually have, like, special sections at the front of the crowd where the camera will pan, where they would actually limit those sections for the fan club of the teams playing. And so you'd have the team 1 is over here, and you'd have team 2 over here. And Koreans are so organized, even in their fan clubs, they're better than us, bro. Like, even in their fan clubs, they would have, like, a guy who would lead things. Like, he would be like, on 3, like, 1, 2, 3, and then they'd all, like, flash his name or something. So actually, this is a way that, in theory, you could actually get around some of the problems you had at this event. If you'd actually had, like, a fan club of that team or this team. You don't have to have it in the whole crowd, remember. You just do it at the front, so you have the good camera shots. And then also, you're trying to do it a bit like think about a real sporting event. You actually have, they're sort of retarded in real sports, but you have one of those people who thinks it's like his job to lead the cheers, and he has like a drum
cheerleader, a hype leader. Yeah.
Every time you see him, you think they're retarded. I'm on about the people in the crowd, though, that do it. But it works. Other people follow them, like when they do a good cheer, like they do it, and it gets like the energy going. I think that actually probably would work.
If you don't even use people, just at least use the big screen and everything that you have actually in that venue. You could try to at least see if you can get access to that, right? Because
by the way, I'm just saying, if this had been in Korea, the crowd would have been insane. Just saying, bro. It's in North America. You don't have any white people in the final. What do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, staples
Yeah,
or not.
If you've been
you're
in
right,
Korea,
you know.
people
Yeah,
go mental.
But it's a give and take kind of thing though. Like you were mentioning that because of the structure of how the Riot's LCS is, this is kind of what happens in the finals. It might happen a lot in the finals. You're probably right, honestly. But you know what? We wouldn't have the build up. We wouldn't have the LCS growing to the point at which it's grown without having this crazy region locking here, at least in NA, here in the US.
What do you mean by grow? Grow in what sense?
I mean, growing just from the standpoint of interest, growing from the standpoint of sponsors being interested, especially some of the sponsors that we've talked about with LCS. We're not going to get that if you know what happened was kind of what happened with StarCraft, where it's just Korea. It's going to, you know, if you want to really know about StarCraft, the highest level of StarCraft, you got to go and figure out the Korean, just what's going on in Korea. That's just not going to happen. It's not going to grow at an increased pace if that's.
Well, in that case, there's two ways to think about this. Okay. What you're talking about is entertainment. I'm talking about sport. Sport is about who is the best.
Sports is both.
No, it can't be both, because you always have a dichotomy between the two. If you want the best final, well, then that's not sports. That's trying to set up entertainment, okay? Now, what you're talking about, like, having this league and growing it for sponsors that's because people in the short term only want to watch people from their region. They want to watch people they know, okay? If you want to make an actual sport, then you should be trying to highlight the best players. So I don't see how you can have the both like that. Riot tried to have it both ways, okay? But explain, what do you mean by having both?
Having both meaning that, like, you can't create you can't create a giant sport without it being popular, okay? I mean, do you agree with that? I mean,
Okay,
there's a bunch of sports. There's like
going.
darts. I mean, there's a ton of sports right now that, yeah, we could try to figure out who the best dart thrower is or who the best horseshoe thrower is. But those sports nobody cares about because it's not popular at all. So you have to build interest, right, in the sport, and through that, entertainment is a big factor. No,
actually, I think you've got the key phrase there: build interest. Because actually, I don't think that, like, that's what I'm talking about. The difference between the entertainment and the sport. The way that things are done now is like television. It's like entertainment. They try to set up the show and they try to have it in a certain way, and they try to tell you, oh, this, you know, this is the character that you're gonna like this way, and oh, this guy, look at the way we portrayed his trash talk. He's like the bad guy. It's not actually. You're not supposed to be building it. There's nothing hype. Okay, I actually think is morally wrong and is like bullshit for sports, because hype is where you take something that isn't actually that exciting and you convince someone for a little while that it is. So you have someone who's the champion boxer who's definitely going to win, and you get like the tomato can who's going to fight him just to make his record better, but you convince people, oh no, he has a chance, you know, he's actually going to do it this time. That's like that hype like that, I actually think is bad, because it leaves people feeling cheated afterwards. Whereas what you're really supposed to be doing is translating the real excitement that does exist, but that just isn't there on the surface, okay? So with the Korean and the Chinese team, there is a level of excitement where you can explain their storyline if you know what you're doing. That is a way that will get people hooked in, but it's real, you know? And that's actually really going to take place in the game and in the tournament. Whereas it's this hype element that comes into what you're saying about region locking. Because what you've done is you've showed people LCS NA the whole time, and they see Cloud9 dominating this league. They're beating everyone, and they think, well, if they're America's best team, then they must have a really good chance at the World Finals. Then they go to the World Finals, and they got decently defeated by the best team from Europe, okay? So you've already immediately like set up a storyline that then fails there. So do you want entertainment? Because if you do, then we can go more this way, and we can definitely make it more entertaining. We can have more numbers, we can have better crowd reaction. If you want sport, then you have to go the other way, in my opinion.
I think that you have to be careful not to make the mistake of thinking that you can take esports though and just treat it like real sports immediately. Because what happens there is you can take something that's treated like, look at like chess. Like chess is very competitive. There are people who treat that as an actual sport, but it's never going to get any kind of widespread coverage. There aren't going to be, you know, kids growing up and like, I'm going to be a pro chess player, blah, blah. Like it happens, but it's very hard to do. There's no money in it. It's hard to get a lot of people to do it because there's no money into it. And as a result, the entire scene kind of suffers. With esports, you're kind of stuck in this awkward middle ground where, do we want it to be like a legitimate competition? Yeah, sure. Do we want people to cheer for the people that are going to win, or for people to like people because they win and not just because of their personalities? Yeah, that would be awesome. But I think you have to be careful not to make the fallacy of assuming that esports has a niche where people are always going to watch it because it's a real sport, like, say, American football or European football or baseball or basketball, where they have audiences that watch those games. And they can have real sports and focus on real competition because they have an audience that watches those games. Esports doesn't really have that audience yet. And I think that a lot of the awkward stuff that we kind of get stuck in is trying to actually grow that audience. And the ways that people go about doing that are things that might be a little bit counterintuitive to, is this a real sport, or are you creating fake hype or whatnot, you know?
let me give you an example too, Duncan, like Thorin. I'm a huge fan of. I know you're not a big fan of football, okay, just American football, but I'm a huge fan of American college football, and with the college, we have schools that we're associated with, and sometimes they're terrible at football, right? But we still all go to the football games. We still all pack those home games and watch our teams play, and it doesn't have to do with them being the best, and it doesn't have to do. We still love the sport. We still love our team, and I don't think that's bad. I mean, I think that's
I
essential.
think it actually is bad.
No,
but that's
but
irrelevant to
I
the
think-
discussion.
I think Duncan's point is, yeah, you go support your local team, but your local team's content providers don't make you all as fans think that you're going to go to the Final Four and win the trophy, right? That's where the fake hype. There's real sports hype. It happens. There's real storylines in sports all the time. But
that's not
I think
true.
Thorin's
There's
part
fake
is that,
hype.
yeah, but not to the extent like I think that Thorin is saying that we manufacture a little bit too much of this hype over here versus letting the
when it
sport
comes to local
create
sports,
the hype.
When it comes to local sports, there's a lot of fake hype. I know that just from driving around so much when I carpet clean. If you listen to the radio, there were some pretty big stretches in terms of what some Nebraskan teams needed to do to get to the finals, and then they would draw that out pretty hard. I don't know if it's like that in all professional sports, but I know within the local sports, at least in Nebraska, it was like that pretty bad.
Yeah,
But I think what Thorin was saying though was that people have no, and actually I see a lot of complaints about this, and I think it's legitimate, is that people don't actually like StarCraft 2 or League of Legends.
No.
They like Idra and they like TSM. And like a lot of problems, and it's funny because you can actually see players complain about that, where people are like, you guys don't even like the gamers, you just like the casters. You don't even care that it's Huck versus fucking whoever right now on stage. You just care that Day9 and Husky are casting it. So I understand what Thorin is saying there, and that it really does seem like, and that is probably damaging to the long term, that there are people who don't have genuine interest in the games themselves, but more so interest in, like, if you were to tell people, like, we have the 2 best League of Legends teams playing right now, do you want to watch? Or on another stream, we have TSM and CLG playing now. Do you want to watch that? Everybody would go to the TSM CLG team.
By the way, if
stream.
If it had actually been TSM and CLG in the final, by the way, who were significantly worse teams, the crowd would have been insane. That was my original point.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. No one.
But actually, what you're saying there, that's something that people don't seem to realize enough. They've started to realize now, I think, because of the Reddit phenomenon of people getting addicted to drama. But basically, really early in StarCraft 2, coming from other esports games, I expected people would follow it a bit like you followed Brood War. Well, obviously in Brood War, the only people who care about Brood War is people who really like high-level StarCraft 2. That's the only reason they're going to watch, because that's all you can really watch, okay? So it meant that we had like a luxury of thinking that's what every fan would be like. Whereas what I quickly realized in StarCraft 2 was, because it was such a casual game that it had brought so many people in who were on the fringes maybe, and now they're getting interested in esports, a lot of them actually... Maybe initially they have some interest, like, oh, this is a fairly cool game, yeah, like I know a bit about it because I've played it or something, but what keeps them interested in the scene is the entertainment value, and that's like you're saying, like the Idra and so on. And what happened was, I actually had an epiphany one day, that the way, okay, if we think of the demographic who are watching these StarCraft 2, okay, it's usually going to be like males 16 to 25 or something, mainly white in America, middle class, that sort of a demographic, okay. That demographic would look at women who look at Us Weekly and then Hello Magazine, and then they watch soap operas and think, oh, that's so stupid. Why would you waste your time watching that? It's just a bunch of like stupid storylines and drama and getting excited and, oh, who cares what those people are doing? And then I noticed that's how those people consume StarCraft 2. They care about all the drama and, oh, you see what he said on his stream, and BM, he said something at the end of the game, boo. Like, it's like almost like WWE
like
style,
wrestling.
the way they appreciate it. But that's what I'm saying. If you want that crowd, it is the WWE crowd. Well, WWE, the reason they're successful is because it isn't a sport. They've realized, oh no, all they care about is the entertainment. Let's just ramp the entertainment up to 11.
It's all hype. Yeah, it's all hype.
You can take the sport. When I say sports, I actually don't like comparing to real sports. I'm just saying sporting as in you're considering like a real competitive discipline. And the main priority should be like the integrity of the product, as in like it really was the best teams and they really did have a really good game. It's not like set up in some fake way, you know. And so I think you saw with the League of Legends final was, okay, the worst case scenario in terms of the games, and that deflated it a bit. But you saw that everything else that was set up had some little flaws in it based on this principle. Because the problem is, you were saying here, if we want it to be a big game, it has to be like this. Yeah, well, we've already accepted that. That's why it's League of Legends. It's the most casual possible, really competitive game that we can get to pack the place out. But guess what? Now you've made everyone as casual as possible, and they only really care in sort of a drama way, and they only really care about the teams from NA. And now you have your World Championships in North America with 2 teams, one from Korea, who people hate Koreans because they're the best, and then one from China, who people don't even watch. You've just set up the conditions for a terrible final there from the get-go. Philosophically, it's not an accident this happened. Even if you'd have had a pretty good final.
But the thing is you're taking a purist approach as to like how to create a legitimate
tell me how to compromise
sport.
my opinion so we can get on the same page here, guys.
No, what I'm saying is like you're taking a purist approach in terms of like creating a sport, in which I actually agree with you. I do agree with you with that.
It's because I think people go the wrong way around, okay? They go the opposite way in esports, where they go, let's get as many people involved as possible. Well, to do that, we're going to have to, like, you know, blunt down a couple of the elements that are a bit too hard to get understand. We're going to have to dumb this bit down a bit here. Maybe get some players in that aren't as good, but they know them, you know. And by doing that over and over, you get a huge crowd who know this much. That's the depth of their understanding and care for the game, okay? Whereas the other way to do it, a real sport, is that most of the people involved, because the sport is like, it's pure and it's got integrity in that sense, they care this much. And then if it's a really good sport on top of that, like it's also exciting, then the other people come in and they fill in around. Whereas the biggest problem esports has, this is wide across all of esports, is that in theory, I should be the person who loves the esports games the most because I've been around them so many years. But the modern day games, I actually get really turned off because you're like alienating the person who's really hardcore by only appealing to the idiot guy who's just watching for his first time now.
Sure,
and so it puts the person who in theory should be the biggest fan off the sport. And so that's why you end up with scenarios like this where when you need that sort of a fan, he's not going to be there, you know.
Scrooge, what do you
the
think?
problem though is that like the bridges that you draw there, the comparisons that you draw are like it's so much different. Like when you look at sports, like what's the newest sport that's like really popular today? Like MMA. How old is football? How old is MMA? But MMA actually if anything, MMA goes the esports route that you claim to hate. No, wouldn't you say that MMA does the super hyping of individual people and all that? And they really build up the personalities. But like aside from like MMA, like if you look at stuff like the football and the soccer and the American football and hockey, stuff like that, those sports have been around for hundreds of years. So in regards to I think it's a legitimate question to ask, can you actually build a legitimate sporting event out of a video game when it only has a year or two in the public eye to actually gain notoriety and to be popular? Like I don't think it would be possible to gain enough eyes on a game, because it's not like a game is going to come out and instantly transcend to the level of any national or international sport, you know. I think that it's really hard to take a purist approach to promoting esports and to try to get like legitimate sporting events out of that. I don't know if that could ever, in any kind of world where that could.
No, but we've already addressed some topics here that would already fix this problem with the final. Now I'm talking about a grand macro scale philosophical thing that I think will lead to these things happening over and over. If you want specific solutions, okay, I gave you one there, like maybe have fan clubs that actually are set up so you definitely have a certain amount of the crowd cheering. Here's another one that SirScoots sort of referenced. Why not just sell the tickets once you know who the final is? Because there was a week between the finals and the semi-finals, okay? So why not actually sell the tickets either before the semi-finals so you at least know who's in the semi-finals, or after the semi-finals?
Yeah, but
then
that
the
doesn't
people
really
who are going to buy it,
because say that nobody then buys tickets. Like we would still be having the same conversation where you would go, well, nobody bought tickets because there's no white people. You know? Mm-hmm. Like you still have the same problems there. I just think you have to be careful when you. It's easy to look at real sports and to forget the fact that they've been established for, in some cases, thousands of years, and then to look at an electronic game where electronics has traditionally been super fast paced. A game comes out and it's forgotten about in a year. Like if anything, like esports has tried to make that concept not as powerful, right? Where we have games where people play over the course of several years. You know, you get the Quake, the Counter-Strike or whatever. So to take that to say that you should remove all of the entertainment aspects from it, make it a purist thing, and then just have competitions is like, well, who would watch it at that point? You know, like
no,
just
you have all the entertainment aspects, but don't make that the focus. When that's the focus, it's always going to draw away from the other aspects that actually make the game good. That's what I'm saying. In a way, you're setting the stage up so that in general, the interest's not going to be there. Because let me put it this way. You're appealing to the most short-term casual fan, and yet the person you need in the long run is the really hardcore fan who will stay with you for years. The really short-term fan like that, okay, he's here now if you keep him interested, but then he's going to leave as well. And then you have to get a new short-term fan. And so you keep the whole thing dumbed down at level 1, and it can never get to level 10. You see this with casting all the time. People think it's wonderful that these casters like dumb the game down, or they're just bad themselves. No, what happens is they appeal to that short-term casual fan who just likes to turn it on, watch a little bit. But as a result, they turn off the guy who's really into the game. Now, if I watch anything, not even just sports, and I'm really into it, I'm going to enjoy the casting to an insane degree, because they're going to be talking about all this detail, and I'm going to want to know more, even if I don't. And that's going to get me even more into the game. It's like the opposite with esports. We've gone the other direction completely.
Right. Steven, what did you gonna say?
Sure, but I think you could find, like, say you have an alternate universe where you have this esport that only ever gets, like, say 550 viewers on stream, right? But it's super hardcore. The integrity of the game is uncompromised. The casters and the storylines are always completely. Sure, okay. Well, I mean, like, let's say Quake. How many times do you think those people in that alternate universe or in the Quake universe might be saying, you know what, if we just dumb this down a little bit, or we made it a little bit more casual accessible, we could bring in a ton more eyes. Obviously, a lot of them would be there for the short term, but we would be looking for some kind of conversion, some kind of percentage of all those casual people that come in that might stay for the long haul, you know? Don't you think that it's valid to look at, if you bring in 1 million people on your game, that you could convert some percentage of that 1 million people into long-term loyal fans that actually care about the integrity of the game itself? Do you not think that's possible? Or because I see when you talk about super hardcore games, and all I see right now is like things like Quake or like chess, where you can have things with the integrity being completely untouched and no hype or excitement at all. But where does that get you in terms of competition? Like, nobody's going to play that game. There's no money in it.
Bold
the competition's
here's a bold statement for you. If we could take the industry of esports now and go back to 2001 and 2000 and put it around Quake wouldn't be as big as League of Legends, okay, because that takes gaming itself to get into esports.
Yep.
But Quake would have been massive. It would have been 5 times big if you had real streaming and you had huge events like this and you had the same sponsor level. This is basically an esports argument. It's not even about League of Legends. My problem is like this. Esports used exactly the games you're talking about that were so hardcore that they were incredibly exciting to a few people. That made people so interested that they'd go to a shitty tournament and a small tournament and watch small lands. And this player is so amazing when they get that into it. They used that to get to a level of an industry where they could then opt out and just bring in the other games casually and then go to the really casual fan. So the sport you're talking about could not exist. It's not like American football came from some super hardcore sport and then at the last minute they switched to American football. It's not like baseball switched to like softball at the last minute or whatever. I don't know my analogies here, but you know what I mean. Like it's not like a real sport where it was one thing changing. It's like they used the games you're talking about to get to now because they were so exciting. Exactly what I'm talking about now. I'm trying to recreate that.
Let me one second, guys. Let me hear Scoots. What's your thoughts on this, Scoots? You've been quiet for like a while now.
Well, I take both sides of this. Like I think Duncan is making phenomenal points on the psychological growth and development of a hardcore sports fan, right, versus an esports fan. And League of Legends has a huge casual player base. We all know that. Nothing wrong with being a casual gamer of any game, right? But that transcends to exactly what he's saying. It's not a hardcore guy. I'm watching for the bells and the whistles and the fancy lights, right? I'm not like watching Tabe, like fucking, you know what I mean? It's different. Duncan makes those points. Steven, on the other hand, comes at us with this, wait a minute, we're talking a 3-year-old NFL, roughly. But not even that. LCS is 2 years old now? Season 3, right? So, yes. So, what was the AFL, NFL? What were those real sports leagues like their first couple years? What were their growing pains? You know, was it people that didn't know what football was like that was like, what is this new sport? And they became hardcore? So I think, and we all, I mean, I'm the first one to do it too. I always compared this shit to sports, but somewhere the analogy falls flat on its face for historical reasons, for all sorts of reasons. And again, back in the day, if you were hardcore and you watched Quake and Counter-Strike and you try to get your casual friend to watch it, he'd be like, what the fuck? It was not dumbed down. It was not easy. And I remember we used to stream shit, you know, and we had this debate. And again, when only a couple thousand people were watching, not hundreds of thousands, mind you, and we'd be like, do we dumb this down? Do we explain the money system before a match? Do we say, hey, if you kill a terrorist, you get this. A bomb plant costs you this. We never did it, right? We never dumbed that shit down. Should we have? I don't know. And they don't do it nowadays. Or even, you know, watching CSGO, Anders doesn't go, oh, by the way, he planted the bomb. He's going to make X amount of dollars. Should we? I don't know. I think we've kind of beaten around this quite a bit. But I think there is something to be said for a casual level of a fan. And there are casual sports fans. I'm a casual football fan, if you will. When it comes to soccer, I'm casual. I got a fucking Barcelona jersey. Yep, fair weather fan. Got Messi on the back of it, right? Because I went to the stadium, wanted to tour this grand location, and I bought a jersey. But do I tune in the middle of the night to watch Premier League or anything? Nope. So I don't know. Again, I think at the end of the day, it's still a cool thing that Riot did. I think we're shitting a lot on this. I think it is a cool thing.
Like I said, I don't think it's bad, by the way. I had it like a 6 out of 10. It was all right. It was above average.
I mean, but again, Thorin's been hypercritical his entire career. I'm a hypercritical guy. I looked at that production and went, really? Really? Oh, cool. You know? I think they did some really good things right. I think they did some things they could have done better. But again, I can tune into every broadcast. I can tune into my own broadcasts and see this shit. So, I don't know. I think it was overall really, really cool. It all falls down when we start to really look at real sports sometimes, and it even falls down even more when we start comparing things like League to StarCraft, or even StarCraft to Dota, because they're quite different animals in their number of people playing the game.
Let's compare Dota to League. I mean, I think comparing just the TI to the LCS championships.
Well, I mean,
why can't we
Duncan already made the comparison.
Yeah.
They packed the international is packed with hardcore Dota fans, and it shows, right? No kind of casual fan of esports or even Dota probably spent the money to go to Seattle. Not that many tickets for one. They weren't trying to fill 10,000 seats. So I think the energy you saw differently. And yes, some people are saying the crowd wasn't mic'd at the Staples, but the crowd's mic'd in Ben Aruna Hall, so you heard them more. Huh?
I was in the crowd, though. I've heard that argument as to why the crowd didn't sound loud. I was in the crowd, bro. I wasn't listening to the stream.
Yeah, so again, like your point's valid. Like it was just the excitement level. Like I think, again, I go back to I almost went to LA to go to the Staples Center to say I saw this big, huge beast. Would I have been losing my mind banging thundersticks? Not at all. And I wasn't people like me went for that exact purpose. To say I want to go. Yeah. I want to experience this. No one. I can't say no one, but very few of the percentage that were at the Dota finals went for that reason. They went because they're fucking Dota fans, right? And again, I'm not saying that Staples wasn't full of League fans, but I think it was League fans and then some.
See, actually, that's the funny thing, is Dota is the exact example. Dota is what I'm talking about with League of Legends. I want League of Legends to be like Dota is, where Dota basically is almost only the hardcore people. There's not that many casual people because they haven't appealed in that philosophical direction to the most.
I don't know if I would agree with that. That's a really brave statement to make. That's a really brave statement to make.
You don't
I've
think
seen a lot of really fucking
Dota
stupid
2 than League of Legends?
It's more so for sure. Yeah.
They're both pretty hard to understand. If you have no idea what's going on, you've never seen a MOBA before, they're both pretty hard to understand. And I've seen my fair
League
share
of Legends. They've played League of Legends, whereas they haven't played Dota.
Do you think Dota 2 has a lot of fans that have never played Dota 2 before?
No, that's my point. The fans of both games have. That's the stupid thing about League of Legends. It's not a casual esports game. It's a game with 30 million people where like 1 million people watch. That's, if we had that figure in Counter-Strike, it would have never got successful ever. We had to have some insane figure at the end, like almost the entire player base at the end, watch the game in the tournaments to make the numbers good enough. Right. Whereas in League of Legends, okay, we had this said before, that's not the case. Okay, Dota 2 has a smaller viewer base, but I think they're more fanatical. They more care more about the game, as far as I can tell from what I saw looking at the International 3 stuff, reading the threads about it. It's more of a casual sense in League of Legends. That's like the difference between the two games almost. But it's not like the games themselves are that different. It's that the philosophical divergence happens, and then you see it replicated through the fans and the tournaments and how the pro teams approach things and how the game companies approach things.
So here's like two, or go ahead.
Well, my only take would be, and again, we have to look at Dota as the predecessor of Dota 2. So League had no game. There was no League of Legends 1. Like, yes, they're similar games. Yes, they're MOBAs or arts or whatever you want to call them, but like Dota 2 has a pedigree behind it, whether you liked it or not or watched it. So there were, it's like
and the
Brood War fans. It's the Brood War fans that went, all right, StarCraft 2. The difference is the Dota 2 fans didn't went, oh, fuck, this game sucks, right? So I think you've got, again, a little bit more of that historical fan following the new version, right? And you had to be hardcore to care about Dota. Like, there's no casual Dota fans out there, right? So again, we're doing a lot of this apple and orange stuff where I think sometimes the comparisons fall down a little bit, I think, in some regard.
So here's two examples that I think fit fairly well, okay? So in terms of taking a super casual approach, you have a game like League of Legends, right? And they've done everything they can to make that game super casual, right? From the gameplay mechanics, such as there not being any super punishing stuns or snares or disables or overpowered champions. Everybody gets a flash, a teleport, right? They've done everything they can in terms of making that game casual accessible, right? You can buy champs, you can earn IP, all that shit. And they've done it, and they've grown the game. So it's obviously arguably inarguably the largest esports in the world right now. And then Thorin would point to that and say that while that's good, you have a lot of people who aren't actually interested in the game itself, but who kind of came along this false hype train. They're casuals. They don't actually, love the game for the game, et cetera, et cetera. And we kind of saw that at the finals, right? Where it was 2 Korean teams versus each other, or no white people teams or whatever. And now, like, look what we've done. We've built all of this stuff up. It's kind of artificial. And you've got there's just too much casualness. There's no hardcoreness, right? And those are legitimate arguments, right? So I think you can kind of turn around and look at, and I think this is a fair comparison. If you look at how StarCraft 2 launched, in my opinion, a lot like how Thorin would want to see an esport, such that when StarCraft 2 launched, it launched as a hardcore fucking 1v1 ladder competitive game. There were no chat channels. There was no community bullshit or anything. Fucking in Brood War, when you wanted to play a ladder game, a melee game, you would log on. Oh shit, chat was 80% of the screen. You would click the join button on the side. You would bring down the melee menu. You'd click melee, and then you would find games. In StarCraft 2, laddering was like 90% of the screen, right? So I feel like StarCraft 2 came out with that statement in mind that everybody wants to be a hardcore esports fan. This whole game is fucking only about laddering. There are no use map settings games. The arcade is fucking terrible, but nobody cares because we got the hardcore fans. Dude, when it launched, come on, the arcade was fucking terrible.
Okay, when it launched,
it was terrible.
Okay,
terrible.
right.
And for a year after, and it still is. No. So I feel like StarCraft 2 launched with that like hardcore mentality in mind. And as a result, and you said this earlier, where there are a lot of StarCraft 2 fans who are more willing to watch Korean versus Korean finals, and I would agree with that now. But the reason is because all of those casual people have been weeded out. But now you kind of have to look at, well, taking this extreme approach, like where are we at now? We don't have all the crazy casual blah, blah, blah of League. However, we have a lot of people dropping the game who aren't playing the game anymore. A lot of interest in the game has died off. The competition has died down a little bit as a result of that, even if you can't directly see it because of all the people switching. And so now you wonder, like, that's why when you say things like that, I feel like you have to find a way to temper both approaches rather than going hardcore in one direction or the other, because both of them carry with them their own problems, you know?
Well, the reason I gave the Dota 2 example is because the main criticism you could give against Dota 2 is that it's way smaller overall. There's way less people involved who are casuals, etc. But the reason why I gave that as an example, I should probably state this as like my philosophical approach, okay? I actually don't care if esports is really big, if it degrades the games that we're watching, okay? So I can accept it to a degree if it still either allows things to be the same or not quite as bad, okay? So if we're going to get benefits, but we're not going to ruin the good thing, then okay, that's fine. Everyone who's on this train of like, we got to make esports bigger, it's got to be bigger, oh, more fans, oh, look, this is going to be the best esports event in history because it has 1.x billion people watching. I don't care about any of that, okay? For me, the Dota 2 stuff is way smaller, but it was enough, okay? There was enough people watching to have a big final and having this big venue, and there was enough people watching to have good teams and have enough prize money. It was enough to have everything else be good. Whereas the problem with the League of Legends example, and it's not just League of Legends, this is StarCraft 2 as well, is that you're dumbing down the other aspects, but it costs you in another area every time. So I don't see why it needs to be like that. Like, but where's
well, that's because you're not a player. Like you can't. It's the competition is better when there's more money involved for everybody. More money means more people can play the game. It means that when you have when your entire professional circuit is people who can only play when they're not working their full-time jobs to make a living, that competition is always going to be worse than you have 20,000 people that are all slammed into gaming houses that can afford to do it full-time because there's so much prize money to chase, so many sponsors in the event that they can all afford salaries to play the game full-time. Competition is always going to suffer if you don't have enough money in a given industry to support people playing it full-time. It's like when content producers want to make enough money doing their stuff, and then the value of the content increases because they can do it full time, et cetera, et cetera. Like everything. That's why I said you got to find a balance, because if you can be as hardcore as you want, but if the only time you can squeeze in practice is when you get home from your 12-hour shift at Burger King or McDonald's, the quality of your games and the competition in that event is never going to be as good as 4,000 people that are playing nonstop 24/7, because they know that if they get good enough, there's actual money waiting for them at the end of that journey into professional gamedom.
Yeah, but you're going
the
completely
carrot.
the other way here.
Dangling
That's
carrot,
like you've just
Well, no,
you've
I'm
just
not
gone
saying- I'm not saying you have
extremely
to
the
go-
other way.
I'm not trying to go extreme. I'm just.
Why do
that's
we
why
have
I'm
to go
saying you
either
have
way?
temper
Why
it.
not just have some of the
You
good
have
parts
to
of both?
temper it. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%.
No, but every single time I bring up a point, you guys are always trying to argue in favor of the populist view. Like, no, but we got to
Well,
do
no,
that.
we're
'Cause
just
we got to
bringing
get
out
more
the
people there. And fans won't care if they don't do that. It's like,
Well, no, I'm just saying. Well, because it seems like you said it yourself earlier. You're taking like the incredibly purist approach,
Exactly.
and while there are definite benefits to that, like you have to keep in mind that there are also benefits to the other side too. You can't just. It's easy to look at League and to criticize the bad and just totally dump out while ignoring some amazing aspects of League, like the fact that Riot actually salaries teams to play full time. Stuff like that. I think is really amazing. Hold on, I got a thing. 1 second.
I mean, in the end, Thorin, they do put
Gotta
the
go
best
shave.
team. They do put the best teams into the finals. So
say
for-
what?
I mean,
does that mean?
no, wait. It is structured to the point where the best team does get to the finals, right?
No, that's inaccurate. It's single elimination with no seeding, mate. The best team could meet in the round of 8.
Okay. I guess you can make that argument. Sure.
Now, listen, they locked out this tournament, okay, in that they got probably I think the first and the third best team made the final, okay, because actually the problem was the OMG team I described before, they were from China as well, so there's nationalistic matchups are always like very close, and it's like a lot easier for there to be upsets, and so Royal beat OMG in the round of 8, so I think that could, like on paper, maybe you could make they were the second and third team, so they did end up with possibly number 1 and number 2 in the final. That's why I don't criticize and say it was like a bad final or whatever, because it's just what happens sometimes when the number one team's way better than even number 2. That's fair enough. I mean, I just don't like the fact that here's the one thing, okay, I don't mind if someone wants to be populist, okay, and they say, I just want esports to be big, and I want League of Legends to be big, and I just want this final to have all this hype and all. Okay, if you want that, that's fine, but then don't try and have it both ways, as in you want to then claim that you're having the most hardcore tournament, and that you're going, these are the, like people would say in this tournament, I'll give you an example of the bullshit of region locking. People would say, who were the commentators and analysts in this tournament, well, these are the 14 best teams in the world, and it's like, no, they're not. The second best team in Korea isn't even here, and they're probably the second best team in the world. That's an example of where your bullshit populist view is now fucking with the integrity of the sport. When you're saying, well, this is going to be a good final because these are the 2 best teams in the world. Are they? You're only allowing 3 teams from Korea. You're only allowing 2 teams from China. You're allowing teams from NA and Europe so that they get into the round of 8 potentially, and now it looks like Europe's is good. This is WWE again, mate. This isn't real sports. It's okay if you want to call it the Olympics, okay? Yeah,
that's what I was
going
gonna.
to have that.
Well,
I was gonna-
WWE
so I was
comparison
gonna bring up the
isn't fair.
Olympics
competition's still real, even if the hype is fake. The competition is at least real, even if the hype is fake. Sorry, go
No,
on.
the competition is worse than I just described there. The second best teammate from Korea would have killed almost everyone except maybe the semi-finalists here. That's maybe. They were really good.
But so
And they weren't at the tournament. It's your world championship.
So you made a comment about the Olympics just a second, and like if we wanted it to be like the Olympics, then so be it. I mean, are we not saying that it isn't somewhat like the Olympics, given that it's region locked? That we're saying we're bringing.
That's the thing.
I mean,
I don't want it to be
like,
like
would
the
you say-
Olympics because it's
Yeah,
not
but
the
is there
Olympics,
anything-
it's the world championship. It's the championship of the best teams in the world. It's not the championship of countries and one team from each country. That's the problem. It's halfway between the two again because you're trying to get both things. What made the WCG great, okay, is that it wasn't the world championship. It was the WCG, and then you had ESWC, and then you had IEM. Totally different structures, totally different methods of qualifying. And so if I'm not that into the system of WCG, okay, no one crowns the world champion from that. I can watch ESWC and I can watch IEM and I can appreciate WCG in its own sense. Like, okay, I'm not that into the structure, but it exists and it has a merit. Now, if WCG had been the only game in Counter-Strike, I'd have been telling you the same thing. Because what would happen is, Fnatic would have won 1 year and gone to the finals and won gold. And then I would have said, yeah, but SK from Sweden were the second best team and they lost the qualifier and they would have come third, So it would have been the same argument again. Just in other esports, we never had this problem because we never made it a pseudo-Olympics and called it the World Championship.
Is the World Cup an Olympics?
Man, I hate real sports. I really hate the World Cup. I hate NFL. I hate fucking baseball.
I'm just saying.
Games on my
I'm just
computer
saying we
called
have an
esports.
established
Please
paradigm
leave
of
the sports
no.
alone.
We have an established paradigm calling world
Like yourself.
champions from structures like that. That's all I'm saying, Thorin. And
The
it's
worst thing is, I tried to appeal to you guys with sports examples, and then you just kept going to me like, guys, you can't bring real sports in this. NFL 100 years old, so I can't win here. How can I talk to you people?
You people? What do you mean by you people?
Non-hardcore, so we're on the show.
White people.
Oh man. Thorin's gonna always have an issue, man.
I think we can
It's
agree that we need positive aspects from both. Both sides have their drawbacks, even the purist side, even the hardcore casual side, but we need the positives of both to actually grow something sustainable and awesome and that gives good competition and should for us to watch in our underwear every Friday night when we're too lazy to go outside, right?
Love the recap. Exactly. All right, so
Right?
an
We can
hour
agree-
topic.
wait, right, Thorin? You can agree that there are some positive sides of the casual shit, right? Even if it does hurt the integrity a little bit.
I've actually never claimed, by the way, that you shouldn't do stuff like promote things and all that. I just think that it should be a priority list, okay? So you're going to do that as well, but you're going to make sure the tournament's awesome first, and you have the best teams there first. You're going to make sure the integrity of the structure is really good. Then you're going to add in marketing, and you're going to have the best teams, and you're going to have fan clubs, like I say, and you're going to have all this stuff. The idea is to expand the really awesome stuff, not create a fake bubble of awesome stuff where it never really was, and then people penetrate the top and they're like, oh, there's fuck all here, what is it? And then they never get to the bottom because they've left by then.
Gotcha.
I think we're pretty much beating this to the fucking the
Just actually, Scoots, you got a few last points here?
One
Last
more
point?
thing unrelated to the talk so far, but it is about League. I thought it was really refreshing, and maybe it was absolute bullshit on his part, but in all my years of listening to players give their interviews before matches and the usual, hey, how you going to do? What do you think about your opponent?
Yeah.
I have never heard a player go, we're going to get our ass kicked. The odds of us winning are slim to none.
Yep.
And and again, maybe Tabe was like the ultimate PR guy, but like I have never heard a guy like shit on his own team so honestly, I guess, and with his own real chances. And he was right? But that was kind of refreshing. I mean, again, maybe
That was
it's the most
refreshing?
ultimate PR move ever. But for him to sit there and really go, oh, our odds are like 10%.
Why is that
I thought it was
refreshing?
kinda cool. Because
Why
he was
is
being
it-
honest. Because he was being honest is why it was refreshing. He wasn't going,
Oh my
oh, well,
God.
we've practiced really
He's
hard. We've got a
he-
really good shot at it. He wasn't bullshitting his fans.
Yeah,
That's
but you don't.
refreshing.
I mean, okay, so I love Tabe to death. Okay, like I was rooting for those guys because
gonna
I
bring
feel,
up
I
some
feel
of
like
your
I feel like Tabe's leadership is really good. But I mean, saying that in public, I mean, what does that do for your team? I mean, of course you're not going to win, right?
Just
I mean,
saying, I'm
bullshit,
just saying,
dude.
it was really
oh,
refreshing.
come
It was
on,
the
man.
right
I
thing
mean,
to say.
dude,
I didn't say that.
if I'm a team captain,
Yeah, okay.
I'm never going to say those words like in an interview. I mean, I might say that, yeah, you know, we're going to give it our best shot and that sort of thing, and you know, we might. I'm not going to say we're going to win necessarily, but I'm not going to say that, hey, dude, we got like almost no chance of winning this. Their team's so much better.
What if General?
It's like-
What if General Patton would have told all those soldiers they were going to die when they were going to run?
Exactly. I mean,
You have been
come
that
on. That
It would have been
I
a
thought that was
refreshing
the worst
speech.
move there.
All I'm saying it was a refreshing change. I didn't say it was the right thing
God.
to say. I thought it was refreshing because again,
Patton
how
had
many
given that-
times?
Patton
How many
had given
times
that
have we
speech.
said stop
Thorin
these
was even
pregame?
speaker.
How
Thorin
many
wouldn't
times
be
have
here
we
to
all
pick up-
said stop these pregame interviews where all they say is fluffy, nice shit, right? That, how you think you're gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna do great. How you think you put? Oh, I hope he does.
Yeah,
right
but you don't
Like,
say shit that's going to be detrimental to your team.
maybe as the captain, if he thought in his mind, if I say this, this will actually reverse
maybe,
like
okay,
psychology
sure.
of his own team. I don't know. When maybe he was setting his own storyline up. So when they did win, it was the ultimate like, oh my god, we won. I don't know. I just thought it was refreshing. That's all I want to say about it. It was
Let me give
refreshing.
you the backstory
Your
on this
truth.
final, okay? Here's what happened. The reason why he said that the other team's much better than us and they're probably going to win is because the teams on other sides of the bracket had scrimmed each other before their matches, because obviously the teams on their side of the bracket don't want to play them, okay? So Royal had played SK Telecom a whole bunch. And remember what I said, the main strength of Royal Club was their AD carry. It was the bottom lane. Well, their bottom lane had been getting shit on by the SK Telecom bottom lane. So it's like, well, if even our bottom lane's losing, we're going to get fucked, okay? So the reason why he said that is because, like Scoots said there, that's actually a better storyline if he admits, you know, we have like a 5% chance of winning this match. Because then if they start to win that match and you know that beforehand, the context is set for that to be the most amazing match in the history of the fucking esports. Now, if he tells you, oh yeah, you know, we're maybe like 40-60, you know, maybe 50-50, and then they get stomped, you're like, well, this is fucking bullshit. Like, you're terrible, your team's fucking terrible, or you just got completely owned. I guess Chinese lol's complete joke. Actually, being truthful, if you I'll put it like this, okay? I always tell people there's no such thing as something you can't say. It's how you say it. If you say it in the correct way, you will translate to the other person what you really mean. It's if it gets the reason why you can't say certain things is because they get misunderstood. It's not because someone understands and disagrees. If you have your good reasoning, okay, then they'll be like, okay, I don't agree, but that's fair enough, okay. So what I'm really saying about the esports thing and the hype aspect is that you're trying to translate what is really there. And okay, if it turns out that ends up with a 3-0 stomping, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about that because we're not rigging the games, okay. But let's set it up so that it's like genuine. So then when we really do have a final where, let's say Royal Club had pulled the upset, okay, and they'd won this final, then it would have been incredible as a result almost of them being truthful and actually having real, not hype, but real excitement associated, you know.
You want to know? Yeah. So this topic is almost is a huge sidestep, but something that I think might actually contribute a lot to this. And I'm curious what Thorin thinks. And this isn't the most popular opinion, but I kind of feel like the let's see. Thorin said you can say anything if you phrase it the right way. The terribleness of casters. I think casters are really fucking bad in almost.
I know where you're going with this.
In almost all of StarCraft 2. Like I think it's really sad that every single time a pro gamer goes to cast, like literally his dick cannot be long enough to fit all of the mouths on it. Like Grubby is the best caster in the world. Idris the best caster in the world. And it's like, why do people say shit like this? And the reason why they say shit like that is because it's so mind blowing to have somebody on stage who actually knows what they're talking about. Like you'll get, and holy fuck, dude! Like being as good as I was at StarCraft, to watch people get like I don't talk about it too much, but one of the big reasons why I actually didn't watch a lot of events is because the cast is fucking driving me crazy. Like I can't sit and listen to two people talk about a match when they have no fucking idea what they're going on, and it happens a lot. And if you're not that good at StarCraft, you might not see it. But like there were matches that you could see that are literally fucking over at like 6 or 7 minutes, and nobody knows it. Like the casters don't know it, and it's not just that they're trying to build a pipe and they're trying, it's that they legitimately don't really have that much of an idea of what's going on. That happens a lot in StarCraft 2. I'm not entirely sure about League or Dota because I just don't watch those events at all, but I kind of wonder sometimes how much that has contributed to.
No, that comes from what I was talking about, though. That, in general, that comes from this populist view, because like you're saying there, it's not that they necessarily are dumbing it down. Now, by the way, some of them are. Like, I think what they've done is copy what the other casters do, who they see do that, and they know the terminology. Yeah. Okay, some of them are just incompetent, okay, to be really good casters and do analysis. But I think in general, that's why people put those people on camera, because again, they're appealing to the most casual people who like the personality of the caster, the voice. But here's the thing, you're absolutely right, because that does happen in League of Legends, and I notice in StarCraft 2 it's really bad. Where I once watched a game at the end of Wings of Liberty, where PvZ was the most mapped out shit imaginable, and the Zerg was basically about to die because the other guy was doing an Immortal Sentry all-in, and the Zerg hadn't scouted, and he hadn't started preparing like in his base, okay? And so the Immortal Sentry is already coming, and there's no way... logistically it is impossible now for him to hold it off, because you haven't got like Broodor type micro where you can somehow like kill 10 units in one. He's definitely lost. But this is the way they cast it. Oh, this could be trouble. He's going to have to hold here. He starts to build the units. Will it be enough? He's going to have to do it. Everything's going to matter in this moment, and he's building up, and the whole game the whole game ended about 3 minutes ago, mate. Now you just have to hope that one of them doesn't like fall out of his chair, break both hands, and then his computer turn off. That's the only way this guy can lose.
Scoots,
you're actually sucking the real excitement out of this sport by doing it.
Scoots, what do you think? What do you think of that?
Listen,
what do you think of that?
Just finish the example. It's really quick, okay? But the reason why League of Legends is a good example is because they're the ultimate at this. They actually cast the game where, like, okay, say one team's winning convincingly, they've taken all the towers and now they're in the other team's base. As they're hitting the fucking nexus where your players are dead in the spawn, and they're going to spawn, and even when they spawn, they won't have time to kill them. They still cast as though it could be turned around. They're like, he must hold, he must kill them. It's like, mate, he can't do any of that. He can't program the game as he's playing it to do that. Like, this is retarded commentary. But people love it because they get so hyped, you know.
All right, Scoots, what do you think about that? I mean, exactly what his point there.
Again, it's very unscoots-like, but I keep agreeing with these guys on a lot of stuff. And it's not just StarCraft. I mean, again, over the years, you have this constant battle of entertaining broadcasters or shoutcasters, even back then, and truly informative, hardcore ones that are telling the truth, are telling it right, or are not at least making up wrong shit, right? And again, being on the backside of this stuff and producing a lot of streams, I think, and again, watching a lot of sports, I think everybody talks too much. Simple as that. Every single caster thinks that they're on radio and there can be no dead air. And it's atrociously annoying. Like, you're showing it to me, I'm watching it, you don't need to be talking a mile a minute. I got it. I'm right here with you, right? And I think they all talk too much. They never, like, let's just see how this plays out. even if it's like 30 seconds, you'd be surprised. Like watch a match and see if no one talks for like 15 seconds or even 30 seconds. Never happens, right? They somehow psychologically all feel that it's, if I'm not talking, this guy's got to talk, and then he's going to throw it back to me, and I'm going to talk. And it's not just StarCraft. I remember back in the day of Counter-Strike, I'd be like, in their ear, go, Midway, shut up. Let the just 2 seconds. Let them turn the corner and go up catwalk. Let it happen. Let me show it happen, because the people watching are not idiots. They can see it happen, and they don't need you to say, and the terrorists are turning the corner, they're running towards catwalk, because I'm showing them do that, right? And again, you see a lot of that. And I'm not even talking about like the fake fluff and the bull, like Thorin just said, where they're statistically never going to win the match, but they're still in the game. Again, let the game speak for itself, and it just happens way too much. I think, again, to speak to what Destiny said, absolutely. You know, when I was with EG and we picked up StarCraft players, not my game. Brood War, not my game. Yeah, I knew the units, I knew the races, I knew how the game all worked. Not my game. Right, but I would sit at these events, or I would sit on a Skype channel with a guy like Evoli and guys that did know the game, and I would be like, "Oh fuck, you know, listening to the casters, and Cody would be like, "No, he's fine." Or I'd be sitting next to Greg or one of our players at an event, and he would look up and literally look at the speakers and be like, "No, Scoots," you know. But me as the casual StarCrafter, obviously very vested in the EG player, the guy had won or lost based on what this guy had said on stream. And my own experts, if we were like, no, dude, just wait. It's not over yet. You know, and oftentimes, you know, it was not over yet, or it was over, but I was given that false hope by the caster when there was no reason for it. So I agree with these guys. And I do, and just another one, a little caster rant. I think far too few broadcasters who get paid to do it, and even more so probably casual ones, never watch their own shit. You would be surprised if you just listen to yourself, not just once. Like, go watch a whole weekend of your tournament. You'll get better for it. You absolutely will. And because you did it 3 years ago when you started is not the same as watching what you casted yesterday. You know, I do it. I went back and watched what we did at World of Tanks, fucking at PAX, just to see where we fucked up. Am I ever going to do World of Tanks again as a production guy? I don't know. But I wanted to go see the other side of it. Because, again, when you had the headset on, when you're in your world, you don't see what they're necessarily seeing. And you got to go watch it. You know, you got to go watch that shit because you will improve yourself. You say too much. You say you know too much. Thorin says okay too much. I tell him that right now. You say okay way too much, bro. But he's not a caster. It's not his job to have perfect diction and perfect, you know, phraseology. So that's my take on that.
So Steven, like your original point, just starting all this was, in a way, like you kind of wish that casters called games early. There's a difference between, and this is something we've talked about in the past. There's a difference between calling a game early and accurately representing what's going on and drawing attention to that particular aspect. Like when I can look at the production tab in a game and see this Protoss is doing a gateway all-in. He has to do this gateway all-in. And whether or not he does it, whether or not the Zerg scouts it, like that's what the game's gonna come down to. When I can identify that just looking at the production tab and I know that, and the casters are talking about expansion timing and the layout of the map and like the fucking drone, like just like random shit. I would want the casters to be completely focused in on like that kind of upcoming thing because that's where all of the drama and excitement of the match is going to come in from. Like nothing else fucking matters. Like his overload positioning being nice to defending against drops, like that shit doesn't matter. We don't want to hear about that. Like just talk about like the Protoss like going down that route for that build, whether or not the Zerg can scout it, and like what's going to happen in regards to that, you know. But that kind of casting requires a lot of game knowledge. And to be honest, the only two people I can think of that can do something better, like Artosis or Apollo, because they seem like they really know the game, such that they could identify like the important aspects of what's going to happen in the game and how it's going to play out and how both players have to react to it, you know, rather than just feeling like every single game is a 5-page college essay where you have to fill up all 5 pages, otherwise the teacher's going to fail you. So you have to talk the entire time about whatever topics, you know, Google brings up, you know.
So this is the same topic I was talking about, creating the hype artificially or translating what's really there that's exciting, okay? The problem is, I think that's the reason why, in general, the trend is like that. Because they think to themselves, what if the game's boring? You know, what if it is just like an all-in? I want to like create like the same level of excitement. I want people to be excited the whole game through. But actually, what you're talking about here, if you do it right, is better than that. Because you translate something real. So for example, let's say you do see that the guy's going to do an all-in. Now, you immediately start, I think, in casting, I like it when you quantify, and people never do this, by the way. You should be like, okay, well, how things are now, the guy who's like defending, maybe he has like a 30% chance. He needs to do this correctly. He has to do this correctly. Okay, the guy who's doing this, if he messes up on this one little area as he's executing the guy doing the all-in, then it's going to have a less chance of succeeding. When you know this, even if the guy loses and it's a really quick all-in, the context is there the whole time throughout the match that it's really interesting because at each moment you can then judge, okay, did he pull that little bit off bit? No, he didn't. Oh, that increases the odds for the guy who was the underdog there.
And that's exactly what I was talking about a while ago, but that takes somebody really good because the earlier that you can identify that exact like paradigm, that what's going on, the quicker that you can shift all of your casting into he has to scout this time and he's got to have his roach warren down by 650. If he doesn't have it down in time, he's not going to have roaches out to stop the proxy pylon the product's going to set up. He's not going to have, like to be able to cook onto that real fast as a caster and identify it. And that's one of the reasons why I like Apollo, because I'm pretty sure Apollo is the only guy that actually studies people beforehand, where Apollo can actually lay out like he's going to do this build with this timing that has to do this damage by this mark or whatever. And it's even easier and it's funny because that's even easier from a casual standpoint than to look and identify like, oh, like he's not just talking about every single aspect of ZBT. He's talking about this one thing, and even me who knows nothing can follow this because now I know what's going on. Like the Terran is going to try to all on the Zerg, and I see that like the Terran hasn't taken an expansion, and now he has to make this timing work, and the Zerg has to do this to win. Like everything is there. The foundation is set for excitement to happen no matter what happens, right? If the Zerg acts in time, if the Terran, pulls off his all-in, I know exactly what to look for as a player. I don't have to worry about all the intricacies of the matchup because the casters know those intricacies. And they've pushed everything aside except for what I absolutely need to know, and that's that the Terran is going to all-in the Zerg at this time point,
Here's the downside to that, though, because actually, I know you guys didn't follow Counter-Strike, some of you except Scoots. For IEM, for a whole season, I actually did casting where I did the color casting. Yeah. And this is the style I tried to do okay, because this is what I always wanted to see in esports. So I tried to do this style where before the match, I always gave like a percentage of who was going to win, like which maps they should win in the series, like in the game itself. Okay, the game in Counter-Strike, you have to get the 16 rounds to win the map. Okay, it might only be like 8-4. And I wouldn't be calling the game, but I'd be saying, okay, with how this game's going to play out, this game's quite good early on like this. This team is better early on in these scenarios. And from the way they're winning right now, the pace is that they're going to win the game. Sometimes I'd even do it in reverse, okay. The team might be down 2 rounds, but I can see from the way the rounds are playing out, they're going to take like two for every 3 going on from now. Now, guess what? The fans hated this style. They just said, whoever I said had the less chance, I was biased against them, or I was a fanboy of the team who was better. Or in the game, what they would do is, if I got something wrong, as in if I just literally didn't know how something would play out. So say I said one team was a 70% chance to win. If the other team won, they'd be like, oh, you fucking idiot. It's like, well, no, I just said 3 out of 10 times that would happen. They would act like,
you do have to say, like, StarCraft 2, the casters do have a lot more pressure and a lot of onus to present the information, because unlike League of Legends and some of the other games, there's usually some type of numeric representation in the production that can actually give you a good sense of who's actually ahead in the game. And StarCraft 2 doesn't have that sort of thing. Like Supply, that's like kind of, but they really don't have it. So the casters have to really know their shit.
Yeah,
I know, that's what I mean. But so what do you?
And I would like to see threads like that where like the caster made a wrong, or like he made such a totally bad call there, or whatever. Because at least it shows the casters are trying to like do something with a little bit of integrity.
They do that all the time, Steven. They get shit on. They get shit on when they do that.
Yeah, because you're scared.
50-50 and they don't want to be the guy who called it that, oh, this guy'd lose, but then the comeback happened. Oh, no, now I look like an idiot. You don't actually. You were accurate. You did a better job than the guy who waffled and made it sound like each team could win. And, oh, these are the... Like, dude, I can't handle it when casters tell me that Grobby versus, like, MC is like, these are 2 of the best players in the world. Like, how far are we going to stretch the word best here? Like to 700 players or something? Like, come on, be real. Just be like, these are 2 very good. This is one of the best European Protosses from the Netherlands, beginning with G, right? Let's be accurate here, okay? You don't have to bullshit me and tell me that they're both as good and they're as good as the best Korean Protoss. Like, it's not true. When you do this on every aspect, it makes the game shit. Like, you made the point before. Don't you agree with me then that it sucks that the person who should be the most into the game, when you're watching the game, okay, you should be even more into it than a really casual fan, because you know what's going on, and you should be like, oh, this is going to be incredible. Like, oh, this thing's coming up now. But I had this same thing happen to me when I used to watch Counter-Strike, because I knew a lot about the game, okay. I would watch the casts and I would have to mute them even at the cost of losing the game sounds, because it wasn't just that it was annoying, it's that I would be watching the game and in my own head, okay, I'm thinking the game through, okay, in this scenario they need to push here, and as I'm trying to think my own fucking thoughts inside the sanctity of my own mind, I've got someone, it's like having an annoying friend in your ear, like, yeah, but what if they do this? And then, and then but you're like, Jesus, can someone mute this? Like, where's the mute button?
Yeah.
And they're like,
if you
I
ask,
should
if you
be the
ask
one
any
loving
pro,
it, you know?
If you ask any pro StarCraft player, I guarantee you will not find a single one who hasn't at several points in the past been watching a fucking stream, like, fucking show that, like, I don't give a fuck about this, show that, like, go back to that, like, that's the important part. I don't give a fuck about this. Why are you talking about this? Just like you said, like having the annoying friend and you're like, shut the fuck up, like, this is what we need to see right now. Holy shit. Yes, no, I know exactly what you're talking about in regards to that. Yeah.
But that's what's funny though, because we're now complaining, okay, like Chris is trying to do his usual thing where he's like an apologist, feel like, well, you know, come on guys, you gotta be fair, you know.
Dude, somebody's gotta disagree with your ass, all right? I'm doing it at my own expense because I agree with Thorin all the time, so that's the problem.
So much money, but they don't actually practice their craft.
Imagine this is a real world job.
Which is kind of strange. Yeah.
Here's a real world job. Do you like StarCraft? Do you want to get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to travel to events to do stuff? Let's take applications for this event. Well, I don't really know much, but I have a good voice. You've made it to the final interview. I know a lot about the game, but I put numbers on things and I tend to be quite analytical. I'm sorry, we'll call you. Like, how hard is it to get these jobs? People should be like jumping over each other trying to get casting jobs. Instead, we're giving them to the wrong people. We're giving them to the people who just have a nice voice and stuff like that.
Well, Steven, you were talking about like, oh, these players, like their dongs are so freaking long. You like it when they cast, though, right? I mean, they're the guys telling it like it is, correct? Like when Grubby's.
No, that's what I said. But I don't like that I like it so much. I don't like that I see that, and then the contrast between their game knowledge and a caster that gets paid $30,000 to cast an event becomes so apparent. Because the disappointment, because now that chasm, CHASM, chasm. Now that chasm between the knowledge of the $20,000 per gig caster and the professional player that might not even win anything, my disappointment now fills that chasm and grows and
Stop saying chasm, please.
The gap, right?
There you go.
The gap,
big gap.
It's too big, right? And anytime you get a professional player casting, all of a sudden you become aware of that. It should never, ever, ever be that when any pro player is casting, you're going like, oh my god, he knows so much stuff, like holy, because what you're essentially saying is, wow, so this is what it sounds like when somebody who's familiar with the game actually casts, huh? You know? No, fuck. I don't know.
It's a quick break because TV wants to join. Hold on. All right, so we'll be right back, guys, and I'll reset all these screens and stuff so that we can make it. All right, we'll be right back, guys. We'll be right back.
Oh, well, let's just get Slasher on here in New Orleans, Richard A. Lewis as well, and then maybe call it